Okay, ladies and gents. Firstly, I apologize that we're about 15 minutes getting started today. But if you know what's happening in the UK right now and what's happened today, you'll sort of understand why. I did have another video to talk about today and cover, but this incident that's happened today, we'll go into it in a minute, is absolutely so tragic that I just couldn't start the stream. Worst thing I could have possibly done was read all the things that have happened. I'll just show you what we're talking about here. There has been a major incident in the UK where it's somewhere between 8 and 10 people, we're not sure at the moment, were stabbed today. And the reason it's so tragic is because a lot of them were children. That's why it's such a hard thing to talk about. So the Children's Hospital has declared a major incident because they're overwhelmed. I mean, even talking about it, it's so difficult. Just listening to it, going over all the stories here, it's absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't recommend listening to all the eyewitness accounts and all the stuff like I've been doing this afternoon, because it's absolutely horrendous what has taken place. And that's why I've said that Britain has really fallen today. It has, and it just seems to be getting worse and worse. I don't know if you remember, but it was only 4 days ago that an army colonel was actually stabbed as well. And you know, this is not, and there's a lot, this happens a lot, by the way. I see it because I have tons of different news feeds that come into me every day, and that's how I come up with so much content, because sometimes I mean, there's hundreds of stories every day that come into my feed, and then I look over and think, what's the most important thing to cover for you? So I see these every day. They come in every single day, these incidents, but they're not usually as severe as this. They highlighted that one 4 days ago because he was an army colonel, and everything that's going on at the minute with the military and the army, and you know, all the things that's highlighting the military. And today, well, it's not as if this could not be covered in the media because it's such a major event. And the fact that it was a 17-year-old who has done it, I mean, I cannot even fathom, I can't even get my head around the mindset required to do something like that. A children's dance class. I can't even fathom that someone would even do that. It's unbelievable. Yet you don't hear of this in other countries. You didn't used to hear of this. Well, I mean, I'm not saying you don't hear of this in other countries, because of course you do. But what I'm saying is, you didn't used to hear of this in Britain. This didn't used to happen all the time, where there's just knife crime constantly, and then there's events, crazy events like this that take place, or things that take place in London daily, or on the bridge, or you know, all this sort of craziness that's happening. Some of it's, yeah, they terror related and migration related and other stuff, but then other things is mental health as well. Some of the events, because I was just looking over some of the polls, and people think, you know, it's 100% this or it's 100% that. Actually, remember we covered that video on Britain's mental health. It's ranked the worst in the world now in terms of mental health. And I was thinking about that as I was watching this story, and I was wondering what exactly is going on here, and why is this occurring? And I got a lot of theories, lots of theories as to why. But I was reading recently over the fall of the Roman Empire, because I have tons of books on this, loads of different empires and stuff. And one thing that was quite interesting was that it said that during these final stages, when the empire was starting to fall, and then of course we had the Dark Ages, right? As the empire was starting to fall, it said there was an uptick in just crazy events. You know, there would just be events similar to what we're seeing now, but obviously different for the time. And it seems as though that is what we're seeing in Britain now. Used to be Great Britain. You notice no one ever says Great Britain anymore. They say Britain. even the media and everything, the headlines, or they say the UK. And I think what's happening in terms of especially the mental health as well, it's showing us what is happening. The empire as it was is long gone and dead, and now what is left is on the decline. It's not the same country that I grew up in, definitely not. That's why I moved from the UK region to the Isle of Man, which for me reminds me of when I was a kid, when I used to visit my family in Cornwall, which is right in the south of the UK. That's what the island here reminds me of. Now, fortunately, we don't have any major events. We don't seem to have all this. And I really hope that it doesn't sort of happen here. And I hope it doesn't happen wherever you are, especially if you're living more rurally, then you're kind of protected from some of these events. But one thing I'll warn you about, especially from what I was just reading today, it's heavily in the cities. When you start to see a decline of any empire, it's usually the cities that are the absolute worst first. And I mean, there's so much I was going to talk about today, but I really just needed to talk about this first because it really bothered me. I couldn't even go live, honestly. It affected me that much hearing those stories and, you know, the eyewitness accounts and what they were saying about the kids. I mean, it's just horrendous. It really is. And yet, why do these events keep happening? Because we have a very weak leadership, and that is the problem. The leadership is so weak and so soft and so woke and so everything else that they're more focused on other countries and other places and sending money everywhere else than they are on fixing our own problems. And that's the problem. I know people don't like it when I say this, especially if you vote for whoever, you know, but that is the issue. And this is not complex. When you look at leaders around the world and strong leaders come in, yeah, they might overdo it. I'm not saying they don't. They often overdo it at first. But what happens is they solve a lot of these problems. They solve the crime problems. They solve, you know, all the issues that are going on at the time, gangs and everything else. They solve all the problems. And then you have to kind of get that balance back again. But we live in this society now where everyone's so, oh, I can't offend anyone else. I can't say anything about this. I can't say anything about that. That no one is tackling these things. And this is why it's getting worse. And I could talk forever on this because I have a lot of theories around it all. But these are the issues that we are having now. And this is why I don't even know if I can read this. Okay. It was a Taylor Swift themed yoga and dance class. No, I can't even read it out. For children aged 6 to 11. Gosh, it's horrendous. Okay. This is another story that's just come out as well. This was, if you all remember Hugh Edwards of the BBC, he was like the most famous, high-profile, best-paid news anchor on the BBC. I mean, he was the guy that covered everything. He covered royal family. He covered everything. This has just come out in the last, hour or two. He's just been charged with making indecent images. I mean, what on earth is going on in our country? Britain ceases, again, just come out. Britain ceases to be top 10 manufacturer for the first time since the Industrial Revolution. Every story now about the UK is like this. It's just bad. Everything is bad every single day. And people are getting fed up. You know, this is what's going to happen. People are getting completely fed up of what's happening in the UK. Or Britain, whatever you want to call it. And you're going to see some major stuff happening soon. I won't even mention it on YouTube because as soon as I do, someone will report the video because there's all these idiots around. They'll report the video and it will get banned. Like my video from Saturday. I'll talk about that in a second, which was, I've got my account back up, but that was taken down as well because that video on Saturday. See, this is the world we live in now. You can't even, there's so much censorship. And it's going to get worse, especially under CBDCs and all the new privacy laws. This is only going to get worse. So all the people out there, and I read the comments, oh, Neil, you're too pessimistic about what's happening. the new government or whoever's going to come in, everything's going to be great. It's not going to be great. It's really not. This is, you need new leadership, and you need new policies to come in. You really do need someone really strong to come in, and yeah, maybe go too far the other way. But it's the only way all this stuff's going to get cleaned up. I know, not popular opinion, but that's my belief on this. So this has just come out today. The country has dropped from 12th biggest manufacturer with an output of 259 billion US or 200 billion pounds per year, behind the likes of Russia and Taiwan. As recently as the year 2000, it was placed 5th. The rankings put it behind Mexico, which has jumped to 7th with an output of 316 billion. It's also behind Italy, it's behind Russia, it's behind France. China, though, this was interesting, is remained top of the ranking. It has a $5 trillion output now. This is almost a third of global production, with the US in second place. So they're almost double the US, who are leading the way in second place. It's quite unbelievable, the seismic shifts that we are seeing in the world at the moment. And this was UK productivity, by the way, back in, here we go, so the 2000 sort of era, 98 to 2000. It was very close to the US. This was based on an annualized growth in GDP per hour worked, very close to the US. And then in 2009, dropped off a cliff. And now where it is, again, it's just dropped off a cliff. So we can see where this is all leading to. According to the Resolution Foundation, the UK has not experienced such a slow stretch of growth since 1826. Around the world, major economies such as China, the US, and the EU are all pumping tens of billions of dollars into such strategies as part of a race for dominance. So everyone's investing except for the UK, is what it seems. Now, let me just mention briefly about what happened, because I know a lot of you have already been asking what happened. The channel is now not affected, which is good. So we're online and everything. But my video from Saturday was taken down. So again, they take the ad revenue, which, do you know what? At this point, I really don't care, because I saw this earlier, because obviously I don't do any work on a Sunday. I take the day off, I observe the Sabbath, etc. So I wasn't even working until I check in my videos on Monday morning. So I open it up on Monday morning, and it says, oh, your account's restricted, blah, blah, blah. And it did bother me, because it said, you've lost your monetization, you've got a strike, you've got all this other stuff. And it bothered me until this afternoon. I saw this story about what happened with the children. And it really put it into context. Actually, yeah, it's frustrating when they do these things, but there's bigger things going on in the world right now, truly. It puts things into perspective. This is nothing, really. The fact that I had to spend all this time getting my channel unaffected, getting, and who cares? It's only money at the end of the day on this. But they've blocked the video, and they've explained why. Here it is, the ceremony. I think we've got some video of this. I mean, people are in absolute outrage around. So I talked about this, and they said that I breached their copyright by, which doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. So this is why, if you go onto the channel here, you can't actually see the video. They took it down, but it is on the other. You can see the top left. I can't even say the keyword or the video, or they won't list the video because it's competition to them. But you can see on this site here, you can watch the video, and it talks about all the other stuff. And I didn't even, do you know the funny thing? I didn't even talk about everything. So there was, hold on, here it is. I didn't even talk about this, which was the bowing down to this. And then there's the figure. There it is in the cloak that gives the stuff. I didn't even go all in, by the way, on the whole thing. I didn't want to, talk about every last detail. But there was a lot that happened. And they've just completely restricted everyone. So almost no one can talk about anything that happened on Saturday. You just can't even talk about it. And then they did this little apology, which didn't really say anything. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's why you can't see the video. And I'll say one other thing on it as well, because they said that I breached their copyright strike, their copyright and everything else, the Olympic Committee. It's absolute nonsense. And I'll tell you why. Because I had so many strikes and I almost lost the channel back in 2021, I had to really learn about this. I went right down the rabbit hole of learning all the legalities of content. And I did it to such I could probably be a content attorney at this point. I went so deep and read just, I can't even tell you how many pages of all these documents and the legalities, and I read all the court cases and everything. So I know exactly what the laws are. So if you're a content creator, here's a little tip for you. Content, if I were to play, say, their ceremony, that is breach of their copyright. If I just put it on my channel, that is copyright infringement. But if you take a clip of someone's content, like I took a little thing, in fact, let's just say I took their video, and their whole video filled the screen, but then my face was in the bottom, like I do on my videos, that is not copyright breach either. So you can actually do this. However, fair usage applies. So I would say, 10 to 15 seconds is reasonable. You can play a little bit as long as you're talking about it, because then you're giving context. You're making it into something different. Oh, look what just happened. And, so-and-so, and this is why, and you can give a commentary. That is completely permitted. You can do that on a longer video as well. But if you just want to play it safe, 10 to 15 seconds. So what I did was not even in breach, because it was just an image which had another image on top of it, and then it was off of an X account. So it wasn't even copyright strike in the first place. But let's just say they were upset about the little clip that I showed of that weird trans sexual dance that was really disgusting, right? And then all the crawling and the licking and all the horrendous stuff, all that weird stuff they were doing. Let's just say it was based on that. Again, it was still under the time frame, and it was within a wider context. So I could appeal it, I could do all the other stuff, but it's honestly not worth it. It's not worth the time and the energy and the hassle, because that's how they tend to get me, is they just waste my time, where I spend hours and hours and hours trying to get a video, turned around, like the Great Reset video that I talked about. That video was banned for years and years and years, since 2020, 2021. And then they finally, after 3 years, said, oh, we just got around to reviewing your Great Reset video, and we found that after all this time, it doesn't breach a copyright or anything else after all, or terms and conditions. So there you go. You can have it back on your channel. You see, this is how these things work. So the Olympic Committee have obviously got a huge sway over YouTube. I don't exactly know why or how, but they got everything right across YouTube has been taken down. If it hasn't already, then they will get round to it. How on earth they have that much power, I don't know. But I'm sure it's something probably connected with all the weird rituals and ceremonies, and something with YouTube and some of the others. I don't know how they're connected, but if you know, drop it in the comments. Today, I really don't care. The stuff that's happening in the UK at the minute, and this is just getting worse and worse and worse. There are solutions, but I don't think we're ready for them just yet. But the time will come, and yeah, that's all I'll say. All right, well, thanks for being online today. Let's hope we got some better news tomorrow, and I'll speak to you then. Take care. God bless you all. Stay safe.